Hey, this is Chris from Rekkid Talk with the first video of the second year of Rekkid Talk. So I started off the first year back when I um, making my very first video. Nobody was watching. I did a ranking the albums of Juliana Hatfield. I'll put a link for it at the end of the video, maybe down below if you haven't watched it. It is out of date because the Blood album hadn't come out yet, and I might scramble it if I ever redid it. But I'm going to do a similar band. Today I am tackling the studio full length album discography of the Lemonheads. And so I'm going to be looking at 11 albums. 10 of them are credited to the Lemonheads. There is one full length Evan Dando solo record that I am going to include with this. Really, I can kind of split the career of the Lemonheads into three different eras. The first era, which was your mid to late 1980s, the core three members of Evan Dando, Ben Dealey, I hope I pronounced his name correctly. It might be Diley, and Jesse Peretz. So they had met in prep school in Boston. I believe they were all from well-to-do families. I know that's certainly true about Evan Dando. Basically, they were rich preppies pretending to be hardcore punks, particularly on their first album, first full-length album, and they had an EP before that. They were on Tang Records, Taang. Teenagers Are No Good. So a lot of the punk and hardcore from the Boston area was on that label. And then in the 1990s, you had the Atlantic Records era, so they were signed to a major label. Ben and eventually Jesse left the band. The band really became Evan Dando and whoever Evan Dando was working with. And so you kind of have Evan Dando as your bubble grunge Graham Parsons of the 1990s. He's got his friends from Australia, his drug buddies, because he did develop a bad drug problem. I've seen pictures of him stoned with Courtney Love. Of course, Juliana Hatfield's in the picture here and there as well. Then the third era is basically going to be his 21st century output, various small labels, pretty sporadic stuff. Whoever he's working with, again, the former members list of the Lemonheads is getting sort of like the fall, very long. There was an aborted effort in 2012 to do sort of a reunification of the various eras theme with Evan, original member Ben Dealey, Juliana Hatfield, and Ryan with an R. Adams. My understanding is that it fell apart almost immediately. The scuttlebutt I heard was that basically Evan showed up to the studio high with no new songs written, and Juliana said, "Fuck this," and nothing happened out of that. All right, so let's get into my least favorites. First, number 11 is the most recent effort, Varshan's 2 from 2019. And so basically, the two most recent albums by the Lemonheads are all covers. And sorry, I find this to be a lazy, half-assed, haphazard assortment of songs, all over the place in terms of styles. And in a sense, that's been true about the Lemonheads' entire career, trying out different styles, covering songs from all over the place. And here you've got stuff from Yola Tango and Beavis Franz, and Nick Cave, Paul Westerberg, John Prine, Lucinda Williams, the Eagles. There's a few gems on here. The Jayhawk song Settled Down Like Rain. So Evan's doing a duet with a woman named Marciana Jones. She had been in it with him in a little group called the Sandwich Police that released an EP that I don't have. She also appears on a song called TAQN by a band called Eyes, which is a little known late 70s punk band. And Evan does like to throw in some pretty obscure covers along with some pretty commercial stuff. And apparently, this band, Charlotte Caffey from the Go-Go's, had been in that band before the Go-Go's. There's a few real clunkers on here. I don't like their NRBQ song Magnet. And the Florida Georgia line round here is just total poop. My number 10 is going to be Varsins from 2009. So, yes, 2009, 2019, two cover albums, nothing in between. I have this promo version. Uh, there's the song list. Similar vibes. We go from there's a Graham Parsons cover. I just can't take it anymore. I think Evan tends to do a pretty good job with his Graham Parsons covers. There's a Townes Van Zandt and a Leonard Cohen. I don't think Evan's versions of those are as good, kind of lame. The G.G. Allen cover of a song called Laying Up with Linda is kind of fun, turning G.G. sleaze punk into sort of a country rock murder ballad. The obscure punk band Fuck Emos from Austin, and it's called that because they couldn't get a gig at a venue named Emos, not because they necessarily hated emos the people, although they probably did as well. And that turning kind of their psych punk into something sort of Flying Burrito Brothers esque. There's some obscure late 60s psych choices he throws on here. And then somehow he covers a Christina Aguilera song, Beautiful, that had been written by Linda Perry from Four Non Blondes. And the model Kate Moss does guest vocals on Dirty Robot, which was a lame synth pop song written by Arling and Cameron, a Dutch group, which was pretty dumb. So you get the sense that doesn't really seem to be writing any new material and does sort of these haphazard covers. And unfortunately, it's really that later era where all my bottom albums are coming in. My number 9 is going to be Baby I'm Bored, which is officially an Evan Dando solo record, although I don't really see what distinguishes an Evan Dando solo record from a Lemonheads record made after 1990, because it's all Evan and whoever he's working with at the time. It is kind of a good title because I was bored listening to it. It does have mostly original songs. It's Evan, random people, John Bryan. There's a couple songs with Hal Gebb and John Convertino. So, of course, from Giant Sand, John from Calexico. Those two and Evan and Juliana actually had a short-lived band that did a tour they never recorded together called Fruit Child Large. So the fruit was Lemonheads, the child was Blake Babies, and Large was Giant Sand. There's a YouTube out there that exists of like a show they did, I think, in like the Netherlands or Germany. Unfortunately, the sound quality is pretty terrible. And I mean, I re-listened to this just a day or two ago, and I'm not really, nothing really stood out on this album. My number 8 is going to be the Lemonheads. So just that eponymous title from 2006. And this is, in fact, the most recent album featuring original songs. I kind of call this the Lemonscendence record because most of the songs are featuring Evan on guitar, and then a couple members of the Descendants, Carl Alvarez on bass, and Bill Stevenson on drums. You get the random cameos, which is also sort of a Lemonheads thing. Garth Hudson from the band somehow plays keyboards on a couple of songs. Jay Mask is playing guitar a couple of times. That's always good. Josh Lantanzi on bass. He's somebody who's worked with Juliana and Ben Queller and Nora Jones. Everything sounds fine. Everything sounds like the Lemonheads should sound. Nothing is as catchy or memorable as their stronger material. Probably the best song on this is called No Backbone, which Evan wrote with his frequent writing partner Tom Morgan, one of the Australian guys, and it does feature some Jay Mascis guitar, so that's probably the best. And of the albums from the 21st century, if you're going to get one, this would be the one I would recommend for you to get. Next, my number 7, I'm going to go back to 1989 and the album Lick. So this would have been their last one that they released on Tang Records. Came out in 1989. And even on the album before, but particularly on this one, at least on the songs that were specifically written for this album, there was a movement away from the sort of the snotty prep school version of hardcore punk. It is a hodgepodge of stuff recorded from sources. So I think 5 or 6 of the songs were actually recorded for this of the 13. There were a couple of songs that were re-recorded that had been in the original EP. There were some outtakes, some B-sides. It was all cobbled together into a CD. And the idea is that the band had almost broken up before making this, and Ben did in fact leave after the recording of this. Um, I'll be honest, I don't really like Ben's vocals when he's not doing hardcore. Probably the best song in here is called Glad I Don't Know, which was from the debut EP. They re recorded it. It's kind of a Husker Du esque song. Um, Corey Luke Brennan, who had also been in Bull at La Volta, is on guitar for this and another album. And he kind of plays metal, shreddy guitar. So you'll get some of that here. There's a song called Caso de Ferro. The lyrics are mostly in Italian, and Corey plays very shreddy guitar. Luca, which had originally been recorded for an earlier album and then didn't end up on the album, was put on this album. There's also sort of a throwaway cover of a Patsy Cline song written by Mel Tillis, and a cover of a song by the New Zealand punk band Proud Scum. So again, the Evan tradition of covers from all over the place. My number 6 would have been the album the year after, Lovey from 1990, and this was their debut on Atlantic Records. So Ben is gone. Jesse Peretz is still around. This is the final album he appeared on, playing bass. Corey Luke Brennan plays guitar in a few songs. Juliana Hatfield does backup vocals on a song or two. This features a very sincere, not snarky cover of Graham Parsons' Brass Buttons. We know a lot of times Evan will do snarky covers, especially very early in the career. The two songs that were co-written with Corey Brennan, Little Seed and The Door, both have pretty shreddy guitar in it. He's a guy that, while all of this was going on, was getting his PhD in history from Harvard, and he eventually did. He became a history professor. So it's kind of wild. And I know Ben and Jesse went on to successful careers outside of being a musician as well. So that was my number 6. My number 5 is going to be Creator from 1988. So this is the second full-length album. So you got the core 3 of Evan, Ben, and Jesse. John Strom was brought in from the Blake Babies to play drums. Early in their career, it was basically Evan and Ben would take turns playing drums. Whoever was singing the song would play guitar, and then the person not singing would play drums. But that's probably not really workable for live shows. So John Strom played drums on here. I kind of think of this as the Ben album. He wrote 8 of the 13 songs. Evan wrote 3 of them. A couple covers that Evan sing. You've got Kiss's Blaster Caster, because they had originally recorded Luca for this and changed their mind. It did come out on the next album. And then there's a Charles Manson song, who Evan is into. I do not get the preoccupation with things Charles Manson. That's my number 5. Number 4, and apologies for I don't have the front insert. Again, this is a promo copy of the Lemonheads Car Button Cloth from 1996. So this was their final release on Atlantic Records. And so the well-known song from this one is called The Outdoor Type. I think this still is kind of a staple of their shows. I think the true gem on it, though, is the song right after it called Losing Your Mind. Very harrowing considering the source. It does have some pretty heavy guitar and some very heavy subject matter in the lyrics. Knoxville Girl is apparently a traditional song. They throw in some heavy guitar as well. This album, I think, is a bit heavier than the two that came immediately before it that I'll be discussing later. You do have some of the quiet, loud going on with folky rock interrupted with heavy guitar. The closer, Secular Rockulage, is almost an instrumental, except there's a little bit of whispering near the end. But it was almost, if they hadn't done that, it would have been instrumental. I'm pretty sure it would have been the only instrumental in their discography. That's my number 4. Number 3, Come On Feel the Lemonheads from 1993. So this was the third of the 4 Atlantic records. Still very much in the bubble grunge phase. This is probably when Evan was the most notable in terms of being famous, getting random big name cameos like Belinda Carlisle and Rick James to appear on it. Juliana does some background vocals on several of the songs. The hit was Into Your Arms, a super catchy song. It was written by an Australian woman named Robin St. Clair from an obscure band called Love Positions that Nick Dalton, the bass player, had also been in. It's About Time was about whatever the fuck that Evan Juliana relationship was and all the bullshit from the music press. Big Gay Heart with the steel guitar and the lyrics about fellatio. And then there's Style, and then later on there's Rick James Style. I want to get stoned, but I don't want to get stoned. And then the CD, of course, ends with the typical 1990s dumb bonus hidden tracks that aren't any good and not worth the trouble of listening. 2 minutes of silence to get the dumb hidden track. All right, number 2, I've got it on CD. Lemonheads Hate Your Friends. I've got it. Was a recent record store day reissue. So this was the debut in terms of a full-length record. They did have an EP before it. And so you've got, let's see, find my notes here. Evan Jesse, a guy named Dud Tracton, played drums on several of the songs. So this is really the pure smart-ass preppies fucking around like they're a hardcore band, even though they're really just a bunch of posers. I really love, I think Ben's singing is definitely most suited for this snotty hardcore punk sort of stuff. And he suffers more than Evan when they do mellow or more melodic material. The song Second Chance, that's a Ben song. Some of the Evan songs, like, where did I put my notes? Don't Wanna, Hate Your Friends, that sort of stuff. And then finally, my number 1, I'm going to make sort of the obvious choice. The Lemonheads, It's a Shame About Ray. I've got it on CD, the original version with 12 tracks. I've got it on CD with the 13th track, the cover of Mrs. Robinson, that incidentally Evan hates. I've got the recent reissue, double disc, and so you've got the 2 bonus discs included. Well, there's 2 discs, so one disc has the original album, then the second disc has Mrs. Robinson and demos and outtakes and live songs and all that sort of stuff. And you can, of course, do a little bit of this. All right, and this video is getting close to 20 minutes, so I need to wrap this up. But so this album is just a real gem. I really think it's one of the best albums in the 90s. So the band at this point is Evan. Juliana Hatfield's fully credited member for the first and only time. She plays bass guitar and sings background vocals. David Ryan was the drummer. A lot of songwriting help from Evan's Australian friends Tom Morgan, Nick Dalton. Stone Cold fucking classic, even and especially when we ignore that tacked on 13th song, Mrs. Robinson, Rock and Stroll, Confetti, It's a Shame About Ray, Rudderless. Oh, then depending on which version you have, track number 5 might be called Buddy or My Drug Buddy, which is, well, it's about Evan scoring drugs. Bit Part in Your Life, Allison Starting to Happen, Sealand Fan in My Spoon. I mean, and this album, these songs are all really short and super catchy. I think the whole album's only about half an hour long. Frank Mills, a cover from, I believe it was from Hair. And this is just, if you're looking for sort of that melodic, I know it was sort of a disparaging term, bubble grunge, but sort of Evan and Juliana doing the sort of the 90s version of Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris, if you want to cliche it up that way. But I think it's a great album. And so we're going to go slightly over 20 minutes. I'll recap the list 11 through 1 more time. Number 11, Varshan's 2 from 2019. Number 10, Varshan's from 2009. So those two cover albums. Number 9, Baby on Board, the Evan Dando solo record from 2003. Number 8, The Lemonheads self-titled from 2006. Number 7, Lick from 1989. Number 6, Lovey from 1990. Number 5, Creator from 1988. Number 4, Card Button Cloth from 1996. Number 3, Come On Feel the Lemonheads from 1993. Number 2, Hate Your Friends, the debut from 1987. And numero uno, the obvious choice, It's a Shame About Ray from 1992.